Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Nolzur's Marvelous Tutorials with RealmSmith. We've done, I think this is episode 12. We'll be painting the Cloud Giant today, which is a model from Storm King's Thunder. That is modeled actually after Countess Censuri from the Storm King's Thunder campaign. I'm running that campaign in one of our live streams, and we're really super excited to dig into this mini today. This wonderful, awesome, incredible mini by WizKids. It's super, very, very awesome and cool. Couple quick announcements before we move on. Our Kickstarter is at 11 days left. Tomorrow's 10 days left. We're excited to say that we funded within 48 hours our first $25,000. We're up to 55,000 or so. At 60, we release our next stretch goal, which will add actual traveling merchants and shops in our online adventure builder for our adventure boxes. So to learn more about our adventure boxes, you can go to www.realmsmith.tv, and to check out our Kickstarter, you can head to realmsmith.tv/Kickstarter and check out all the crazy things we've released, including 2 new reward tiers this week, where we immortalize your character by renowned and legendary comic book artist and friend of mine, Ken Lashley, will draw your character, and you'll get the original copy along with a color poster, and then we will write you into our next adventure box campaign adventure, which is really exciting. And then the next tier up above that, quite a ways above that, is we will then 3D model your character. We will print it in premium plastic, and then I'll paint it for you for your table. So anyway, some really, really fun stuff. Super excited about the future of RealmSmith, and so check out our Kickstarter there. Want to thank our partners, of course, Dungeons & Dragons, for hosting us tonight, and WizKids for providing us these awesome minis. This is the Harshnag mini, Frost Giant, that unpainted mini that we did a number of weeks ago. This was a 3-part series. You can catch that on our YouTube and on the Dungeons & Dragons YouTube, and lots of other things. Last week we did the Bullet, and so we're probably going to take a couple weeks on this Countess Censuri mini, because it's sizable, and we want to take a little bit of time to do it as much justice as possible. Jumping right in here, of course, tools, which we usually kind of walk you through. Here is the Cloud Giant miniature by WizKids. Some Vallejo brushes. Today I'll be using a number 2, a number 1, and a 0, as well as a wider, larger dry brush. You have also obviously a water pot for cleaning your brushes, some paper towel for dry brushing and cleaning your brush off, as well as a paint palette of some sort in order to mix your paints, and so on. You can also use the back of the blister pack that the miniature comes in. That's actually quite functional, and a little trade secret that we use sometimes when we don't have a palette available. The paint list, we have 13 paints that we're working with today. We've got Jade Green, Sepia Wash, Glacier Blue, Black Wash, Blue Wash, Dead White, and Cold Gray, as well as Verdigris, or verdigris, depending on what you want, heavy black green, glorious gold, heavy blue gray, a stonewall gray, and polished gold. All right, jumping right in. Now, looking at the source material, this is Countess Censuri right here on the end from Storm King's Thunder. Spoilers, I won't give away too much. Bottom line is she functions and serves in King Hecaton, the Storm King, in his court. His royal court, as it were, in Maelstrom, which is thousands of miles below the sea level. Anyway, so what you can see here, she kind of has a bit of a gray, kind of greenish, smoky kind of color palette. We're going to make her pop just a little bit more for the tabletop. There's also a pre-painted version of this that you can get in Storm King's Thunder blister packs from WizKids, but we're going to be focusing, obviously, on the unpainted version today. Her skin tones are quite dark, as you can see there, so we're going to try and kind of nail that as best as we can today. So starting off, looking at the miniature here, I think we're going to want to hit all the skin first, just because it's what I like to do when we paint is to work from the inside out when you're looking at a miniature. And so you want to make sure that you're painting all of the deeper areas first, so that when you come in on the high areas, because if you were to do it the other way around, you'd mess up all of the high areas when you're trying to paint the lower areas. And what I mean by that is, like, in the legs, under her outfit here, and in all the dips and so on. She does have a cape that came kind of glued on. I actually just pulled it off and it came off fairly easily, just because I'm going to want to paint her arm in here and the back of that cloak so that when you turn her upside down, you don't see kind of white up in the creases there. And then we have all these fun little clear effects that we're going to try some fun stuff, and we'll see how that goes. All right. Okay. Starting off, we are going to use heavy blue-gray, which is a extra opaque color. These basically function like a base coat or base paint. Basically, what that does is it allows you to have as much paint on the model in the least amount of layers as possible. So you can actually get this mostly on in one go. As well, I am live in the chat here. If you guys have any questions, thoughts, concerns, suggestions, things that you've done for this mini on your own, please sound off in the chat room as we are here and we are listening. Let me just make sure that we are all good here in the chat. I am going to try and... Sorry, guys. There we go. Just trying to make sure that I get a view on all of the chat here so I don't miss out on any of your questions or comments. Okay, so like I said, heavy blue-gray is where we are heading to. That's what we will be starting off with. There we go. I have the Great Red Dragon says, I have the green, blue, and copper. I'm missing the black and the rest of them. I also want the Wyvern. I really, really love dragons. I even picked the small silver one. It's an absolutely amazing miniature. So true. We've taken, I think we did the first 4 from Wave 8. Or wave 8, and then we did the last one from Wave 9. I think those are the waves. I may have the waves mixed up. But anyways, we did black, green, white, copper, blue. Were all the ones. So check out the VODs on our YouTube page and the D&D YouTube page. Hey, Ancient Ignorance, as usual. Welcome, buddy, to the stream. All right, so here we go. We're going to do heavy blue-gray. It's already in the palette. I always dilute the paints just a touch. Even the heavy opaque ones. And we're going to start with the legs. And we want to get fairly... Now, this isn't too far from the color of the primer, but of course we want to put a base coat on just to make sure that the paint adheres on that. So, just going to go through here. And as you can see, it's a fairly light gray, so this is going to serve more or less as a mid-tone. Then when we add a wash on there, it's going to create some shadows, so that'll give us kind of our dark tones. And then highlights using a variety of grays. We usually do a lot of dry brushing on these minis, but with her, because she has a lot of smooth skin areas, we're going to do some blending in order to work up some highlights on here. We're going to mix some colors, which I don't do a lot of usually. I like to kind of like go with the colors that are in the range, but today we're going to mix some colors to get a really nice fade. All right, so that is her legs. And go through to her feet here. Now, on this area, typically I say don't be too careful about getting paint on neighboring areas, but you actually want to do that here. The reason you want to do that here on the feet is because they are right beside the clear effects, and you don't want your clear effects to be opaque. You want them to be clear. So just make sure. I totally just put my thumb right on her knee here. And anyways, yeah. So you don't want to paint onto the clear effects, because then obviously they'll be a solid color, and that's not what you want for those. You want them to be clear so we can do our work with washes and such. Okay, left foot almost done. And it's really easy to get these extra opaque paints onto these nice flat smooth areas. Just goes on really, really smooth. There we go. Okay, legs, feet done. Go in here. That's all armor. We'll do her arms. Now, I'm not too concerned, like I said, about getting it. She has all this like jewelry on her arms, armlets and bracelets and such, and almost like these ornate bracers. But she'll have skin between them. So I'm just going to jam my paintbrush in there. Again, being careful not to get too much of the clear effects around her hands as well. But I want to get all those inner areas where her skin would show through painted well. So I'm actually going to just paint the whole thing with heavy blue-gray just to get really good coverage in here. Like so. And I think her magic kind of starts into her wrist here. So we want to be careful not to cover up those areas. Hello, Naroon. Welcome back. Turimbar28. Question: how much prep do you do on the Mini regarding trimming seams, etc.? And hello, Turimbar. Completely honestly, some of the Minis sometimes come a little bent or whatever, just from shipping or whatever, or the manufacturing process. So sometimes I'll use a little bit of hot water to kind of push them back. Basically what I do is I get warm water, hot water, as hot as the tap would come. I place it in, I'll bend it, and then place it in cold water just to kind of reshape it. Just sometimes. Very, very rarely do I do that. Every single one that we've painted on this stream, I have literally taken it out of the blister pack and painted it just before the stream. When it comes to mold lines and stuff, I come from the wargaming world, where you're using an army every single time you sit at the table to play your game. With D&D, it's a little different for me. The reason is because my players will see this giant. Now, she's a reoccurring character, as is Harshnag, and for Harshnag, as you can see, we took some extra time with him just to make him look a little bit more detailed, a little bit more kind of jaw-dropping on the table. But that's because he's an ongoing NPC that showed up from quite a bit of the campaign. Spoiler warning. So for that reason, I took a bit more time on him. But for regular monsters, like for all the dragons, we're only going to see them probably once a year, if not once ever, depending on your campaign. And so yes, it's fun to paint them, and they're great. But when it comes down to it, you're going to have a whole collection of miniatures from D&D. And if you enjoy painting, for me, I like to paint them to a tabletop standard that is good enough to look at from, say, a foot away. If they're good enough from a foot away or so, then that is enough. So when it comes to that's a long way around the question, and then coming back to it, where basically for me, trimming mold lines and such, for me, isn't a concern on these minis. I want to get them on the table so that my players love them. They're not going to go into mine aren't going to go into any competitions or anything like that. I literally just want to get really cool minis on the table that will impress my players, that will scare them and strike fear into their hearts, and then move on. So for me, I don't do a lot of prep, frankly, at all. The WizKids minis all come, the pre-painted WizKids minis all come pre-primed, so you don't even have to prime them. You literally take them out of the blister pack, and you're good to go. Turimbar is saying that the cape is not coming off for him. Yeah, they might not. Mine came off a little easier. You could maybe apply a little bit of heat to it if you wanted to, maybe with a hairdryer or something like that to see if the glue lets go a little bit. That isn't a WizKids sanctioned move in any way. It was just something that I noticed. It came off fairly easy, so it's just making it easier for me to paint. You may have to actually get your brush up inside and do it that way instead. Also, I apologize, folks. I had promised that I would try to post paints, all the colors ahead of time, so you guys could paint with me on these nights. That is the plan. I want that to be the thing that I do moving forward. I took a weekend off for the first time in a long time. And by off, I mean still checked our Kickstarter every day and still commented. But Just took a little mini weekend vacation because I've been working pretty much every weekend for as long as I remember. So I took the kids camping this weekend. So I wasn't able to get the paint up, but I will try absolutely tomorrow to try and post the paints for next week, even though we may actually still be on her. So those paints will still be the same ones. So if you folks want to watch the VOD, if you're not ready tonight with the Cloud Giant, and you folks want to paint with me live next week, the rest of her, because I don't think we're going to get her done tonight, then you can, well, you may be surprised. But then catch up with this week's session during the week, and then you can paint with me live next week, and you'll already have all the paints from this episode at the beginning and the top of the show to reference. All right, so we have got, I'm spending a lot of time on this arm, but you're not really going to see it too much, but sometimes I can be a perfectionist that way. But you can see we have done arms, legs. We're going to head to the face. Again, diluting a little bit. Naroon says, what is next week's mini? So next week's mini is probably going to be this again, Naroon. I don't think we're going to finish it this week like I mentioned. If we do finish this, maybe we'll take a little bit of a vote. If people are, and we often do votes in the Realm, which is our private face group for subscribers of our adventure boxes. I still have camping brain. So if you guys want to be part of some of those votes and some of those things, then definitely check out our adventure boxes and become a member of the Realm as well. If you back our Kickstarter, you automatically at most levels get a membership to the Realm thrown in. So definitely do that. There's a lot of fun stuff on there. But yeah, we can take a vote right now, you guys. If there are WizKids minis that you guys, yes, display current color. So Turambar, unfortunately this week I did not have the time again to get them on the screen, but we are using heavy blue-gray. What I'll do is I'll show it to the screen, or the camera rather, this time around. And I apologize for the low-tech approach to this week's tutorial. Family first, as we say here at RealmSmith. All right, so face is done, skin is done. I was careful not to get her hair. Let's go on a close-up on this. I was careful not to get her hair or any of that area. I have base coated, like I said, the arms, legs, all of that stuff. I am debating whether or not to fill in between her legs. I don't think that would be leg. I think that's just all part of her armor. So I'm just going to keep that solid, actually. That is the plan right now. All right. Naroon says, the boxes are great, guys. You should really try it out. Thanks, man. They're fun. We enjoy them. And we got some really crazy add-ons too. If you head right to the bottom of the page, when you go to Kickstarter, we have 3 of them, but 2 add-ons are the life-sized replicas and physical props of the Explorers pack and the Dungeoneers pack in the Player's Handbook. So we are going to ship you everything that you get, including 10 torches, 50 feet of rope, the whole thing in props. I'm saying props, replicas. We don't want to be responsible for people trying to climb mountains with the Dungeoneering pack, but I'm just saying that that is one of our add-ons, and we're very excited and crazy, apparently, to do so. But anyways, okay, so that is the heavy blue-gray. We are going to move on to the heavy black-green. This is going to be our base coat for her armor and for some of her clothing. I saw a render of her whole body, and a lot of it is this same kind of green color. So we're going to kind of keep that more or less the same. The nerd YYC says, waiting for my first one, hoping they ship first and second at the same time or close to it. Yeah, man, and that's something I want to say to everybody. We apologize. We've actually switched fulfillment partners. So our Kickstarter was built and created, one of the main reasons was to establish a fulfillment partner so we could ship faster to you folks, and all of that wonderful stuff that comes with having a fulfillment partner, including improving all the stuff inside. So we've nailed down a fulfillment partner, we've secured one, and we are in the midst of shipping all that stuff to them. So we have a delay on our boxes right now. We apologize for that, but they will be out soon. So just appreciate your ongoing patience here. I just want to see if there's any other questions. Make sure that you write question before your question, folks, so that we know. So that I catch it as I'm going through here. Because again, this is a collaborative stream. We love to hear you guys and what you have to say, and tips and tricks that we may not have even considered ourselves. All right. I'm using a number 2 brush for this. Again, we are using heavy black green for this step. A little bit of water. Again, this is an extra opaque paint, so it's going to go on more or less in one coat. You can see right there, it's actually quite, the coverage is very nice. Question, have you done a Fomorian? So, I never know how to pronounce your handle. So if you could like phonetically maybe type it for me. Osobabayako. Osobabayko. Osobabayko. I don't know how to say it. But a Fomorian. So I did paint a Fomorian. It was at PAX with, I don't remember who my guest was for the Fomorian. It was at PAX Unplugged, and I can't quite remember which celebrity I painted it with. But anyways, that video I think is in the wild. It might be on our YouTube page, but I may have another one here. We could probably do one on this stream if enough people would like to see a Fomorian painted for sure. Oak Bug Bay Company. Oak Bug Bay. See? Co. I'll call you Oak Bug from now on if that's okay. All right, again, around this armor here, we want to be really careful, folks, not to get it onto the clear effects like I just did. Do as I say, not as I do. It's a saying, right? Now, this is already a pretty dark green. It's going to get even darker when we wash it with the black wash, but that's okay. We want it to be nice and dark. And the shading on this, in a lot of the art that I've seen for Countess Censuri, is kind of light. So it goes from, instead of going to like a green, like a rich green, it almost resolves up to like a white, pale white color. So that's kind of the approach I'm going to take as well. We want to be careful around the arm here, because we've done so much work to try and, or to paint that base coat on nice and solid. But at this stage, if there's a bit of a mistake, it's okay, because you can just go back to that heavy blue-gray in your palette and touch that up. This heavy black green is a really cool color. Nice and solid and rich. Oh, Oso bye-bye. Oso bye-bye. Question, Nerd YC. What month are we going to do a Kraken? That would be amazing. They have a pre-painted Kraken, which I unleashed on my players in my our Sentinels of the Storm stream. By the way, you can check out our streams on Monday nights at 7:30 on our Twitch and YouTube. And I unleashed the Kraken. Now, they don't have an unpainted Kraken yet, but maybe this is our opportunity to tell WizKids that we really want an unpainted Kraken. And I will paint one. I will paint the heck out of a Kraken on the stream. The heck out of that Kraken. Now, again, I think this was all that same color green as well, so I think we're going to continue that color down her dress. Again, we only have like the waist up shot of her on this in Storm King's Thunder, but I saw a drawing of her online, or an illustration of her online, that showed that. I am going to paint maybe the centerpiece a little bit different, but this will all match, I think. Is the current plan. We never know. Sometimes we switch, folks. Sometimes we just do that on the fly. Let you guys see our process. That's the other thing is, for those of you that are here for the first time, I don't choose my colors before the stream. I don't test my colors before the stream. I pick the colors that I think will be best, and then adjust as I need to, kind of on the fly, if something's not working. There we go. Perfect. All right. That is nice and solid and green, which is what we're looking for. And then we're going to go on the other side. Nurun has another question. Have fun at work, nerd. YYC. Question. Nurun has a question. I see you dip your brush in water, then apply paint. Is that how you dilute the paint? I usually fill the brush, then blend it with the paint in the palette. Any reason you do it your way? No. So what I'm doing is I'm using all the paint on my brush, and then I'm getting some water, and then I'm adding it to the brush on the palette, and then I'm adding it to the mini. So I am kind of mixing it in the palette before it goes back on, or before I load it again, if that makes sense. At least I think I do that. It's so funny because you guys ask questions that for techniques and things that I just kind of do second nature. So it's interesting to see, to kind of reflect on why I do certain things, because you don't really think about it when you do them. Oso is easiest. Done, Oso. Done and done. Okay. Also on our YouTube channel, you'll find the Beholder tutorial that we did, as well as the Owlbear tutorial we did. The Beholder was a multi-part, pretty in-depth tutorial of how to do some object source lighting and a bunch of other stuff on the really cool, heavily sought-after Beholder from WizKids. That was a fun mini, although I think I've painted 13 to date, because I do master classes at all the shows. So for the first little while, nobody could get Beholders, and then the next shipment that WizKids came in, they sent us a bunch to do Origins and a bunch of other shows as well. And so those folks got the next shipment of minis and a lesson on how to paint them. So that was a lot of fun. If you folks, I think the next show we're going to be at, where we'll be doing a paint and take, or I should say Vallejo Masterclass, will be PAX Unplugged is the next one. And that's always fun. And then we got all kinds of plans for GaryCon, folks. If you are going to GaryCon, one of the tiers in our Kickstarter, you get to play in a private celebrity game with us. And the Sunday of the show of GaryCon is actually my birthday. So I think what we're going to do is do a stream for my birthday. Not a stream, sorry, play a private game in one of the suites on the Sunday of GaryCon for my birthday. And if you back us on our Kickstarter at that level, you get a ticket to play, as well as a pass to the show. So, okay, that green is done there. I'm also going to do the leg armor things, shin protectors. I know there's a technical term for that. I just can't think of it right now. Greaves. The greaves. At least that's what we're going to call them for now. how many people actually try to follow along on a weekly basis while I'm painting? It'd be interesting to find out. And or how many people don't, and if you had the colors ahead of time, would like to do that? That's an interesting question, because I'd love to know if that's something that you guys find valuable or not. I actually went back to the heavy blue-gray because I found a spot I didn't do, which is another great thing about Vallejo, is that Vallejo paints tend to stay wet in your palette longer. It's one of the benefits of their paint range, especially when it comes to blending or fixing mistakes that you notice after the fact. You don't have to load your palette with more. You can just go right back to it, which is pretty great. Again, I'm being a little careful here not to get it on the skin. You can see a little technique, folks, that I use and that I teach in the master classes is for added stability when you're doing an area that you don't want to mess up. I always rest part of my hand, my painting hand, on my model holding hand. So here I'm leveraging the base of the Cloud Giant to get a nice clean line on top. You're going to get less movement. If you're here and you're not, you're kind of, whether it's shaking or whatever the case may be, you're not going to get as solid a base. So make sure that you get a nice solid base to hold on to. Okay. Notice the inside of the leg. I missed some gray. Oso says he's working on the frost dry, but he can't keep up. I know. Yeah, I get through these pretty fast, but I want to show folks that, you know, with the right techniques, you can get through these like in 2 hours. I think we've always made the 2 hours. I always challenge myself to be able to paint these in 2 hours, other than the larger minis that we wanted to take more time on. So this one and the Frost Giant Harshnag mini, I wanted to make sure that we took our time on these two, just because. Oh, and the Black Dragon, which crept up on me time-wise. I didn't realize that painting all the little spines in the wings was going to be so time-consuming. But every other dragon we did in 2 hours, which is pretty exciting. Now, that doesn't usually include base, like the base itself. So maybe I'm cheating a little bit, but anyways, all I'm saying is that in a short amount of time, you can get a lot of work done on a mini with the right techniques. Do you slow yourself in your master classes? No, what I'll do in my master classes, that was a question from Turambar again. I don't slow myself in my master classes. What I do is I will show a technique on camera, and then if I get done before the class does, then I will pause. I'll just stop, talk a little while, find out when they catch up, and then when they catch up, I will, I'll take kind of like a tally of the room with my ear on or my eye on the time, because we want to make sure that I teach at least part of the techniques that are required to everyone in the room throughout that master class. I don't want to just get through base coating and then everybody's kind of left to their own devices for the rest. So what we try to do is make sure that we have enough time to cover all the techniques. And what I tell people is, hey, you know what? If you're trailing behind a little bit, complete the technique on the area that I've mentioned, take the time to do that, and then all other areas on the miniature that have that same or require that same technique or that color, come back to later. At least now you know that area, and then move on to the next thing with me, for example, if you can. And then we also usually tape them or live stream them, so they're always available VOD afterwards for people to kind of go back and finish their minis. So I don't necessarily slow myself, because I want to get through it in a decent amount of time to teach all the techniques. But I definitely kind of give time for everyone to kind of catch up. And of course, base coating is always the longest phase, I guess, of any painting project. My arms must be tired from all that camping, because I keep, got some on the clear effects here, because I keep drifting, folks. I apologize for that. And you'll see that I turn my miniature in all different kinds of positions to try and get the angles that I need to get things done. I'll turn minis right upside down if I have to in order to get in there. I'm just going over this again, because if it gets too watered down and too thin, then you start to get really blotchy areas, and we don't want that. So, Fomorian is on the table for a model that will do. Does anybody else have any other suggestions or thoughts on miniatures that they would like to see painted from the D&D Nolzur's Marvelous line? I'd love to know. I am getting a little bit of overbrush here, but like I said, I can fix that later. Okay. I think that, oh, no, that's not all the green. We have her neck. This brush may be a bit big for that. No, it's okay. You don't want to get too watery like I just did either, because then it's going to just bleed and leak into areas you don't want it to, including these clear effects. Just going to finish off this little neck area here. I may move this down a little bit just so we can get a better angle here. Oh, got a little bit on the neck. It's going to happen. You'll also find that when we add washes, they're actually quite forgiving. And areas that you miss in the crevices and such are often covered by those washes, or at least obscured enough. I know, all this cheating I'm doing. All the purists out there must hate it. Griffin. Oh, Shambling Mound. So cool. I actually painted a Shambling Mound for one of our noob sessions. It was the Tales from the Shattered Shield, because it is featured in one of our adventure boxes. And so I did paint one. Unfortunately, I had to get it done quickly for a session, so I didn't do a tutorial on it, but we can absolutely look into doing a Shambling Mound. That would be fun. All right, so all of the green is done and base coated. I'm sure I'm going to go back and realize areas that I did not do or I missed, because that is always the case when you're done. Because paint when it's wet kind of sometimes is a little reflective, and it looks like it's done. What am I saying? Her whole shoulder piece isn't done. Man. Like I said, camping brain. All right. There should be a name for that. What is it? Sound off in the comments. What do you call that? What do you call camping brain? Just kind of the spent nature that your psyche is in when you've camped with teenagers for the weekend. We had a good time though. Okay. Shambling Mound is one of those that keeps coming up. I might have to do one. We also have a hill giant. I think I posted a tutorial that Uncle Adam from Tabletop Minions ran for us. He ran a tutorial at Origins on the hill giant, but maybe we'll do a hill giant too. I love painting the big minis. They're so much fun. Anyone else? Last week we painted the Bullet. The week before we painted the Young White Dragon with John Kowaleski from Monster Fight Club. Oh, check out Tentacle Town, folks. Their Kickstarter for Tentacle Town, the board game, is up right now. Check that out. It's a great game. Good friends of ours. You won't be disappointed. It's already funded. It funded in 24 hours, which is crazy. And then our good friends at Nerdarchy had an incredible Kickstarter campaign. Raised over $300,000 for their Encounter books. Man, it's so many great Kickstarters out there. I don't envy you folks to find out where to spend your money. But check out RealmSmith. No, we're all in this together. We love just sharing everyone's Kickstarters, and we just want everyone to do well. What is it? High tide rises all ships, or something like that. Rising tide raises all ships. Help me out, folks. Camping brain, which is not a good term. I need a new term for it. That's what happens when you sleep in a tent. My back is killing me right now all weekend. Okay. I do love camping, though. It was the first time I camped with my dad in like 10 years. He loves camping, but we just never have. So he joined us, and it was great. I hung out with my mom, my stepdad too. It's just a good time. All right, boom. There it is. Oh, see, this always happens, especially with jagged, multifaceted areas. You always end up missing one or two facets. Okay. She is base coated. It is 5:42. Still have lots of time left. Ask MP says, I'm surprised I didn't see RealmSmith at Fan Expo. I know, Fan Expo Toronto. It doesn't have a huge tabletop presence. We need to change that. I usually go there as a fan. Our good friend Ken Lashley, who's doing the illustrations for our Kickstarter reward tier, was there. So we always go to hang out with him and the folks at Raid Studios, good friends of ours, Eric Vetter, and all of Ramon and all those guys. We always go to hang out with them and all the other awesome folks in Toronto. But yeah, we don't have any sort of presence there yet, but we definitely should. Maybe we will next year. That would be fun. Okay. I don't know if I want to go ahead and start the process of, we just painted the green. I might do a wash on the skin because washes always take the longest to dry. This is my little DM tray here, and I think I have my little fan in here somewhere, but maybe not. Maybe not. This is where we run our live streams as well. Nope, don't have my fan. Thought I did. That's okay. That is all right. We have time. Okay, so black wash. Get a little bit of black wash, and we're going to do this over the skin. Again, her skin was fairly dark in the subject material. And so we want kind of a dark, kind of charcoaly color for her skin. So we are going to give it a black wash. Diluted a fair bit. Ask MP. Are you from Toronto, Ask MP? I'm assuming you are. If you were asking about Fan Expo. Okay, we're going to wash all of this here. Now, we're also going to add black wash onto the green. So as I pass an area of green, and I am going to close my book because I end up getting splotches all over all of them, which adds character, yes, but so when I get to areas of green that are dry, I will add this black wash there as well. It's going to darken it down quite a bit, but then we're going to lighten up all of that fabric with a dry brush of varying degrees of green. Sounds like a novel. Varying degrees of green. No, it doesn't. I don't know what I'm talking about. Camping brain. Okay. All right. See, missed all kinds of skin areas on this. But again, this arm is going to be covered by a cloak or half cape. Must be a term for that too. Help me with terms here, folks. Hi, Weeping Jay. Welcome. Where are you from? Okay. All right. Gonna try and not get any of this wash, which is difficult because I'm painting the hand right beside it onto the clear effects. It's okay to get it in the crease between the clear effect because that will add a nice kind of delineation contrast situation, but we don't want to get it on the clear effects necessarily, unless of course you do. Again, you know, what I do here is just a suggestion, just the way I'm doing things, but you folks go to town, explore, enjoy, paint to your heart's content the way that you want to, because it is you that has to live with your miniature in the end. There we go. Okay, so, oh, of course, I rubbed most of it off on this arm. All right, I'm going to add the black wash to the green cloak here, and this is going to go in all the recesses. Liquid talent at work. And it's going to add the shadow in this texture. And you can see right away already just the awesome work that this wash is doing. I'm literally just, again, I don't paint the wash on, I manipulate it on the miniature once it's there. So brush it on, then brush it down into all of the crevices. Make sure it rests where you want to, and you'll get really cool result from it. This requires quite a bit of black wash on this mini. But you can see we're just manipulating it on the miniature for maximum effect here. There we go. It's very forgiving. Do so on the other side. And then I'll also do it on the armor above. I'm using a larger brush just to get this done a little quicker. This is a number 2 Vallejo brush. You can see I just did half of it. And with these larger brushes, it's going to really push that wash into the crevices without streaking. You're going to get a much smoother, nicer finish with a large brush on this stuff. Beautiful. Oh, see, an example of what you don't want is here. See how there's this big splotch of black wash? We don't want that. We want it to look natural. We want it in the recesses, but we don't want it to pull it so. We don't want it to pull so much that it obscures the detail. Get some on the feet here. Again, brush it on, then manipulate it into the crevices where you want it to go. Trying to stay away from actually getting it on the clear effects, on the facets of the clear effects, if that makes sense, or on the surface of the clear effects. You just want it in the crevices between the area that you just painted, in this case the skin and the clear effect, to add some delineation between those areas. Just make it kind of stick out, pop out. Just pop out. Like Chris Rock or something. All right. We're also now going to do legs. Now again, I put lots on there, so I'm going to push it around the miniature as much as possible to try and... I didn't get the underside of this stuff. I need to do that still. I got lazy. Wasn't paying attention. So I'm getting this black wash just all on the inside. We're not going to do much painting up in this area here. because really it'd be a waste. But I want to just make sure we get it everywhere so we get some good contrast and shadows. Using washes on big flat areas are a bit more difficult because they do tend to blotch on the surface like this. You can see it becomes a little blotchy, but that's okay because we are going to add lots of paint on top of that in order to subdue it after. I will finish the wash on the armor, and then I will go back and do the underside of the robes and such, which I totally missed. Let's see. Weeping Jays from France. Bonjour, mon ami. I mean, I know ours isn't the motherland French, but we speak lots of French here in Canada. I don't speak lots of French. I speak a little bit of French that I learned in school. But they do teach it in the public school system here in Canada. All right. Okay, again, lots of contrast and depth being added with this black wash. These big minis, it takes quite a bit of time to cover the surface area that we want to cover. So we just do our best to jam it into these areas as much as possible. Like so. There we go. Perfect. All right. Need some more black wash. There's a lot of black wash going on this model. It is a great model though. Once it dries, it's going to look fabulous. Okay. It's worth it, but like I said, the washes take a long time to dry. So we want to do them as early on as possible. Now, I'm going to be really careful with this wash into the kind of neck area because I don't want to get it on that clear effect, but I do want to make sure that it gets into all the creases and that we get some depth in this area, and it's covering up some of the mistakes. Now, diluting a bit more, we want to brush it nicely over the face with care. Like I said, not to go onto the surface of the clear effect, but rather just so that it rests into the recesses and around the edges of the mini. There we go. See, around the lips there, that is really nice. And again, washes tend to look like a mess once you put them on for the first time because they get all kind of splotchy on the surface, but as you start to add more and more layers on the mini, it'll look better and better after the fact. Basically what we're doing is just adding some shadow here. That is done on all that. Next, we're going to move to the shoulder area that I just painted. It should be dry by now. These extra opaque paints dry fairly quickly on the mini. So we're just going to jam some of this black wash into the crevices all over this thing because that is going to be brilliant to dry brush. Going to get all the texture and the facets and the edges of that highlighted with a cool dry brush. All right. For those of you that don't know what a dry brush is, we'll cover that in a second when we tackle that area. Okay. Wow, that actually it's drying a lot faster than it has in previous weeks down here, so that's good. Studio is maybe a bit warmer this time around. Don't know. Okay. Okay, I am going to paint the underside of that cloak, or the robe rather. I am going to need some more heavy black green. Question from Turambar. How often do you replace brushes? I've killed a few so far. Noob. Noob or professional, you will kill brushes. That will happen. I do it all the time. I don't take nearly as good care of my brushes as I should. How often is really tough. Depends on which brush, what I'm doing, the projects that I'm working on, all of that kind of thing. Dry brushing will wear a brush down like nobody's business. So if you're going to dry brush, I would use old brushes that are already out, like on their way out. I wouldn't use brand new brushes that you're worried about kind of keeping intact or pristine, because that's not going to work. Don't use your expensive brushes to dry brush. That'll just cost you a lot of money. When it comes to regular brushes, they should last you a while, especially if you're going to use the higher ones, the sables and all that kind of stuff. Just make sure that you get a really good brush soap, brush cleanser. I forget what it's called, but I have some that, again, I don't use nearly enough and nearly often enough. The other thing to keep your brushes kind of, or to give your brushes longevity, is when you're loading your brush, try, other than the way that I just did it, but try not to get paint past the ferrule or to the ferrule. The ferrule is that metal part that holds all the bristles in. Try not to get paint in there or touching that, because that will clog up that area, and there's nothing that ruins a brush faster than clogged paint in your ferrule. It's probably the only time you'll ever hear that. But that is the truth. So little tricks like that will give your brushes longevity. Your strokes, the way that you use them, all of that kind of stuff will add to the life of your brushes. And the more expensive brushes will last a little bit longer, but you do still have to take care of them. It's not like the more you spend, the longer they're going to last. That isn't really how that works. The bottom line is that actually the more expensive your brush is, the more you have to take care of it, because you don't want to waste that investment. Okay, painted all up in there. Okay, and then I'm going to going back to areas with a lot of kind of facets and dips and details. I have missed all these areas of green on here. That is almost all completely black washed, and you can see now the skin, now that black wash has dried on it, how nice some of that shading is. Even under kind of her jewelry and all that stuff, really nice. And that is continuing to dry still. All right. Okay, I think I'm gonna base coat this area in the middle. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to do a kind of the gray colors, but I don't want it to be as dark as her skin. So I think I'm going to do it like a light gray. So instead of like a warm kind of earthy gray, I think I'm going to do it a lighter gray, or at least resolve to a lighter gray. I don't know. You know, I put more heavy blue gray on my palette when I already have some. So believe it or not, the first color that we used tonight is still wet in the palette. That is heavy blue gray. That is why I love Vallejo. All right. Get in here. And I am just going to paint. You can see that heavy opaque gray went right over that green. No multiple coats, doesn't show through, and went right over it. So I can not even worry about that dark green color that I painted beforehand. I can just literally go to town on this heavy blue gray. I might wash this area and her cape with a little bit of blue wash, perhaps even mixed with black wash. We'll see. Just to give it all a bit more differentiation. Make it a bit more interesting. I am painting really close to my body here, folks, and I'm sorry because I keep going off camera. I may bring my camera back just a touch. There. Oh, that's better. Now the back side of this loincloth area thing, scarf or whatever you want to call it. Again, if you have to twist your model up on multiple angles, weird crazy angles to paint, then chances are not even your players will see it. So, not too worried about getting all the way in there because shadow's going to cover it anyways when it's on the table. So that is that. And then I'm going to go back in again onto the back one. Again, it's covering this black green that we added really, really nicely. Turnbar has another question. How often do you reply? Oh, he already asked that question. Cool, thanks to get me taught about the feral thing. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, that feral trick is great because you'll find that they just paint after paint kind of gets all gunked up in there. And then if you use, I think it's Artist's Choice. I think that's the name of it. I always forget, every single stream I forget it. But anyways, that brush soap is called Artist's Choice or something like that. And it basically you work it into your brush and it will break up all of the paint buildup. Even in the feral area, if you get to it, you know, enough, early enough and often enough, you can really take care of your brush as well that way. Okay, all up there. She is coming along, folks. This is for me, this is just a means to an end, this base coating step. Don't super enjoy it. I mean, it is kind of therapeutic, but it's when you start adding the washes, for me, that I really that's when the enjoyment occurs. When you see it start to come together and get life and shadow and depth and all of that, that's my favorite. A little too much gray. Use the finger. Ancient painter's secret. Okay. All right. That is that for that. I am going to add a wash onto those greaves. Again, black to my black wash, which of course washes stay wet even longer in the palette. These greaves here. This is really going to make all those shapes pop. For sure. That's going to do wonders for this area of the mini. Perfect. There we go. That's one. And one more. There we go. Almost done here. Perfect. Okay. You can see that the black wash has really brought out a lot of the color in that lower area there, and all the green. It's really added some nice contrast onto the miniature. I don't think I want to do all the gold stuff yet. In fact, I think I want to paint all the gray and layer all of the highlights that I want first before I paint the gold, because the gold is usually mostly all around the trim. So I don't really want to mess with that yet. So first thing I'm going to do, I think, is going to, let's see, what's dry and what's wet. Skin is pretty much dry, so I think I'm going to go skin first. Now, for the skin, we used a black wash through all of it. We're going to start again with a heavy blue-gray. And this is our first, it's going to be kind of our mid-tone highlight. We're just bringing back in that, I don't know why I was going to put more, it's still wet. But I'm going to go back in now with that heavy blue-gray. And you want to dilute it quite a bit because you want to build up the highlights in multiple thin layers, and that's what really helps you to blend it. Well, let's see here. Okay, so an example of that, I'll do the leg here. So the leg looks like a muddled mess currently. You can see it's a little dark. You guys finding the lighting a little dark in here? Maybe that's a bit better. But yeah, you can see on the leg it's really muddled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a thin layer of this blue-gray all over the leg, but I'm going to stay out of the recesses, especially along the edges, and I'm just going to build this up in thin layers again, like that. And by building up with thin layers, I should get a nice smooth transition between the grays and the highlights. Leave that wash in the kind of the valleys or the dips in the leg, on the back in the crease. I left a little bit on the front of the knee, and then we're just going to build that up nice and slow. Same thing over here, onto kind of the quad area. Leave a little bit on top. Paint in there and leave the bottom closest to the greaves dark. Now again, most of this should be in the shadow back here, so we're not going to do too many highlights in the under area. There. Okay, we're going to let that dry a little bit. I'm going to switch to my smaller brush. Just want to see how dark this cold gray is in comparison. I actually might switch to cold gray, because cold gray has a bit more of an earthy tone to the gray, and it's about the same kind of lightness as the heavy blue gray, but this is going to give us that kind of darker tone. Again, multiple thin layers. You don't want it so watery that it's basically pooling and like running off your mini. That's very bad. But let's get in on the face here real tight, and I'll show you what I'm going to do here. All right, so what we want to do, again, staying away from the recesses, we're going to use this Stonewall Gray to start working in this mid-tone. So along the bottom of the cheek, light would hit the top here, not down here necessarily, like that, see that? Then the top side of this cheek, but the center area, we want to keep that shadow under the nose top of the lip there, I just did a little bit. You can see. Having a hard time with focus here. Then the chin, bottom of the jaw over on this side. Again, making sure to keep that dark shadow area in there. There. It's really dark on this side of the table, of the face. Okay, then we're going to add to the tip of the nose here, like that. On each nostril, we'll give a little dot there and on the other side, like that. Still, again, allowing those natural shadows created by the wash to stand. Top of the brow. She doesn't have any eyebrows. It's a little weird, but whatever. Never trust somebody without any eyebrows, especially villains. Then, like that. Top of the cheek. And the head area up here. Her lower eyelid, I'm adding just a little bit of a line there. Back of the cheekbone and edges of the ears is where, and I'm going to put a little on the neck too. There. There we go. Again, working up these highlights in thinner layers with Stonewall Gray, which is a much more earthy tone than we've been using on her so far. This will just warm it up, and it will take it away from this kind of cooler color that we're going to use. And I'm just working it up in progressive layers, allowing those areas to be smaller and smaller. Okay. And there we go. All right, that actually turned out really nice on her face. I like that a lot. I like it a lot. I may complete her face in full. Now, her face in the book, I think she has green lipstick on. Or green lips. Her lips could just be green. I may actually do that as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this black green, a little bit on my brush. Now this is one of my favorite brushes. This is Vallejo Paint Master brush number 2, but it's got this really fine tip on it, like a really fine tip. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to carefully, that is not a good angle for that, so I'm going to turn it around. But I'm going to carefully holding my breath there for a second. Do you notice that? Carefully paint some of this on here. Lower lip, which is done now. And then the upper lip as well, just on the underside, which isn't easy to do. There. Okay. And then we will highlight that later with some jade green. But that actually looks really nice. That turned out okay. Then let's finish with the skin tone first on the face, because this will inform the way that we do the rest of the skin. So I'm going to take straight Stonewall, not too diluted now, and I'm just going to add those high points a bit more. Again, the more opaque those areas get, the lighter they're going to be. And I think we've gone as far as we can with the stone wall in that section. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take stone wall gray, not that. I'm going to take dead white. And I am going to lighten that stone wall just a touch to add another highlight. So I'm going to mix it in. Maybe I'll show you guys my palette here so you see what I'm doing. Let's move this over. Okay. See, mixing it in here. I'm just going to mix a little bit of dead white and the stonewall gray. Like so. Make sure that it's a nice thin layer. And now, again, I'm going to hit those peaks. Tip of the nose. Chin. This is probably as light as I'm going to go. Top of the lip. On either side, but not in the middle because that is where the shadow from the nose is cast. Nostril. Cheekbone. Cheekbone. Just along the jaw a little bit. Like that. And then the top of the brow. Like that. Like that. And again, because I lost some of that, dilute a little bit. I do sometimes go get water after. Huh. Look at that. You caught me. That is too much. Not too bright. There was too much white. Not subtle enough. There, that's better. Okay, there and on there. Here we go. And I do, like I said, want to get a little bit on the lower lid. Yeah, that's right. I'm painting her eyelid. But I'm trying just to get a little bit on the top, the lower eyelid. There we go. Okay. So her face is pretty much done. Now, it's a lot brighter than I wanted, and it's not quite as earthy as I wanted. So I'm going to do something crazy, and I hope it doesn't wreck it. But I'm going to get a little bit of sepia wash. I'm going to really water it down. And I'm going to test it on an area. Really diluting it. Everybody's like, don't do it. I'm really going to dilute it. And I'm just going to paint it in an area that nobody will really see too much, which is right here on the arm. So I just want to see what that does to the skin. I'm going to let it dry because I do want it to be darker and earthier than this is right now. But the sepia is too bright, I think. So if I mix a little black with sepia, really water it down so it's more of a glaze than a wash. What I mean by glaze is it's going to cover and tint an area. That's a bit better, but not quite as dark. I think an umber wash is going to be better. Maybe I'll add umber wash to next week and we'll see. We'll let that dry and we'll test it. But bottom line is I want to be able to tint it a little bit more so it's a little bit, it has almost like a browny earthy tone in the subject matter, and I just want to see what happens when that dries because this here is much too kind of cold gray currently. Sorry, I'm trying to bring this light closer because we are not, that is better. Even though it's in the shot. Producers will kill me. Okay. Okay. So like I said, this is a bit too clean for me, for the gray. But I want it a little darker than that. I think I'm going to have to do it with a glaze. So we'll do that perhaps next week, and I'll add an umber tone to the... Okay, so that is that. All of the black wash is dry, except in the shoulder area here. I guess I need to go and do the rest of the skin. So I'm going to go around the whole mini with this watered down Stonewall Gray. And basically, so for her hand here, for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do knuckles like that. And it looks really intense now, but because it's diluted so much, it actually dies down quite a bit in intensity once it dries. Just do the flat area here, up in this area here. Make sure you get kind of the side, the thumb knuckle. I want to connect these knuckle areas to there. And then you're getting this cool little effect along the side here. Done. So that is that. And then I'm going to come back and add one more highlight in the same way on that hand. I'm going to try and get it in here. Again, nobody's going to see this because of that cape, but I'll know that it's there. And that's enough for me. We may need 3 sessions for her. Just like Harshnag, we'll see. We're already at 6:20. All right. That's the hand. I'm letting this wash dry here, so I don't want to go in there too much. I will do this side. In all these open areas, again, we are just painting Stonewall Gray, leaving the wash in the recesses so that you get some nice shadow still. And next to that, the gold jewelry, it's going to look really nice once we add that in. Nice thin lines in here. Some areas will just be too small. Some sections for you to really get in there to be able to bring out some of the skin tone. I would just leave it dark. That's fine. I struggle with being a bit of a perfectionist, so sometimes at my own detriment, I push it too far and try and get into areas that I really don't need to. But okay. There it is there, and then up here. Great. Okay. And then, again, I'm coming in here and adding it to all the open areas to bring back some of that color. Watering it down. It's going to be a bit too bright here, I think, but that's okay. As I mentioned before, I think I'm going to have to do a glaze to bring it back down to that darker color, because right now it's really pale. I'm going to mix in a little bit of this black wash here just for the underside, because I don't want it to be too, there we go, don't want it to be too bright, but I do want to get rid of the blotchiness from that wash. So it's a bit of a catch-22 that way. Let's see here. Okay. There we go. It's not too bad. Like I said, with a wash, I think it'll be better. But but you can see how it really died down. Because it's such a thin layer, it really blends in when it starts to dry. Again, fingers up here, same thing as the other ones. We're going to do knuckles like that. And these knuckles are a bit more prominent on this finger, so we can highlight those on the top, and then the lines that come in the hand, which are much more prominent here, we can see those a lot better. And then more on this side here. The thumb, especially the tip of the thumb. We want to make sure we highlight the tips of these fingers nicely. But there, that's how that hand looks. Okay. And then top of the thumb and along the side here as well. Perfect. All right. Whew. Good stuff. Yeah, that wash is a little too, almost makes it look mossy. I don't like that. So we're going to have to come in with a different glaze of some sort. Perhaps an umber would be more kind of red than it would be green for the sepia, because I definitely want the contrast between the green colors in the armor and the kind of earthier colors in her skin. Gonna come back in with some Stonewall Gray on her knee here and just highlight that a bit. And I'm actually gonna, there I created a highlight for her knee. It doesn't exist in the mini, but I actually created a bit of a highlight because I want it to come down and look like some definition in her knee. Again, that looks really intense there. When it starts to dry, it'll be much less intense. There, like that. I'm actually going to blend a little bit of a bigger highlight along her leg. Like that. Okay. And when that dries, that'll look a little bit better as well. And then I'm going to add another highlight even closer to the middle there afterwards to really kind of make it pop. Feet are treated for me on her the same as hands. So we will draw lines up the feet like this. Needs a little bit more water here. And then down here as well. So ankle, I want to make sure that's prominent and that the shadow around the ankle and shadow in the dips. I actually messed up that one of those toes. I painted right into, there we go. And what I'm using here is I'm using a dry, unused brush to wipe away the unwanted paint in the crevice there. Paint her toenail here, which will make that pop a bit more. Now I'm going to leave dark in the kind of the dip in the inside of her foot. And then I'm going to paint right on her ankle. Make that nice and prominent. There. That is a foot. Okay, again, when that dries, it'll be much more subtle than it appears. You can already see how much more subtle the knee is as it starts to dry. I'll come back in on the knee here in the center, do another highlight, smaller area in the middle of the knee. On this side as well. Like that. And I'll just keep working up those highlights. Taking a break, moving to another area. get this other foot done. I wanted to make sure I got into some blending in this episode, because doing a whole mini base coated like I did Harshnag could be a little mind numbing for people at home. So I wanted to have a little fun with a little mind numbing for me too, frankly, to be honest. Okay, back of the, make sure you get the back of the foot, ankle on the back. Oh, it didn't get the back of the foot on the other one, on the left foot. Like so, like so. There. Okay. Now I'm going to come in with more Stonewall Gray and white, with a little bit more white this time, and I'm going to create a little highlight on the knee, a little line, and a little highlight on the bottom, and then a little line. That'll probably be the final highlight on that knee. That. She's getting there, slowly but surely. Who's Shirley? That was bad. Dad jokes. I'm allowed at least one dad joke a week. All right. Come back. I'm going to do again on the knuckles and on the edge of the hand where the light would show. That. And also going to do knuckles. Well, that was way too bright. Put more Stonewall Gray on that. Let's see, oh, that's good. Knuckle, knuckle, knuckle. And tips of the fingers now. Only pretty much tip of the thumb and down the center. Elbow. Maybe a little highlight on the bicep. Oh, sorry, I'm off camera again. All right. I'm going to go nuts here a little bit. Because we're going to probably add a glaze next week, I'm going to get pure dead white a little bit and just put a dot on the nose, little dot on the eyebrows, and this is just showing the uppermost highlights on her face. Cheekbone. It's a little too hard of a highlight. Now this might look a lot darker when when we paint everything around it, but we'll see. We will see next week. All right. I may do a little glaze test in between sessions just to see how those end up. How's everyone doing out there? Just want to check in, see how everybody's faring. All right. Let's see here. All right, I think I'm going to wash this with blue wash. So the reason I'm going to do blue wash is just to give it, again, a bit of a different contrast and color differentiation from the rest. Just make it pop a bit more. So this is going to be a cooler approach. I'm going to get blue wash. I'm going to mix a little black wash in there too, though, because I don't want it to be completely blue. Although the blue wash in Vallejo is actually quite dark. So we're going to test it somewhere we don't care about too much. Yep. Oh, that looks good. Okay. Then we're going to bring it into the wild on the front. And again, as washes go, we are going to manipulate it into the recesses. And we're going to use the same technique, making sure not to hit the legs too. We're going to use the same technique on the cloak as well, which we will base coat maybe next. Because it's separate, I almost forgot about it. When you do sub-assemblies like that, sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I forgot the whole cloak. But that's just a little subtle wash on that front piece there. Doesn't look a lot different than her legs. It kind of blends a little bit, but that blue just will add a little bit of differentiation. You can see that already. And then we're going to use a glacier blue to highlight that, and it'll really pop different than her legs, especially when we add the glaze next week. That will make her legs a lot more earthy in tone. All right, do the back here. I'm actually going to load this wash on a bit heavier than I was. A little less diluted, because then I can work it up with some highlights. A little bit more heavy-handed on the back here, which is okay. Trying to bring out those creases. Yeah. And the inside. Again, nobody's going to turn your mini upside down at the table. And if they do, you have evil players. All right. This is a bit thick in here. You can see that sopped that up right away. Hello, Nightmare X. Everyone's just super quiet. I imagine you guys are enjoying or painting along. Okay. Again, that is going to be a little bit cooler of a color. That was what we were intending to do on that there. All right. We're going to let that dry. I don't know if I'm going to base coat this week. That's a lot of plastic to base coat when I just did a bunch. So I'm actually going to take a little bit of a break from that, and I'm going to start on the green. I want to do some dry brushing because dry brushing tends to affect stuff around it. So I just want to be careful and do that properly. I will use this size brush, I think. Or do I want to use my larger brush? Yeah, smaller. Okay, so we are going to get jade green. Whoa, timber. We're going to get some jade green. Give it a good shake. Now this jade green is a really fun color, really light green color. You can see that there. Super light. So we're going to work up these highlights actually fairly dramatically. Okay, idea with dry brushing is this. You load your brush up with a ton of paint. I'm getting it on my nice table that I built, of course. Load it up and then wipe it all off. The idea behind a dry brush is you are depositing dry pigment paint onto the surface. So you can see that when I start to do this, the paint just is depositing on the higher ridges in her detail. If you keep too much on here, it will streak. So you don't want to do that unless you want an overbrush or a streaky effect. But otherwise, all I'm doing is I'm brushing it over lightly, and it's depositing a dry pigment onto the highest kind of detail areas on her armor. And this is actually giving it a cool kind of bluish tinge. which is what I was hoping for. As a cloud giant, I wanted it to kind of be a little cool looking. The black green is quite earthy, so this will give it kind of a two-tone kind of look, which is really working nicely on the back too. There we go. And then we're going to work that up even more on the highest detail areas. Okay, so that is on her armor, on the front of her armor. We're going to go again, load it again, wipe most of it off, and carefully inside here, without hitting her face, which we've worked so carefully to highlight, because dry brushing will wreck it all. You'll get like dust if you're too abrupt in the kind of the neighboring areas. You will get dust, dry brush dust everywhere. You don't want that. So like I said, I really like the fact that this is giving it kind of a two-tone effect here. You can see that this green is very much like a forest kind of green, and then this jade green is kind of a bluey green, and it's really like almost like a jungle green and a kind of forest green sort of approach. And then I'm just going to dry brush the heck out of all these spikes on her shoulder. And again, getting really nice detail and highlights on that with a dry brush. Oh man, I'm right off camera. Sorry, folks. Look at that. She's really starting to come together here. Okay, same thing on her kind of skirts. Carefully dry brushing, not to get it on the legs or kind of the linen loincloth things that she has. I don't know if they're called loincloths for females. I'm not sure. There. Really nice effects I'm getting here. And I may even go in with jade green and like do a couple like hard highlights depending on how it ends up all looking together closer to the end result. And what I do with dry brushing is, you know, if it's not depositing enough paint first time around, I'll go back and I'll reload the brush a bit more on the next one, and then just keep kind of adjusting how much I'm loading until I'm getting the result I want. Yeah, look at that. And we're getting some great texture out of this. Really nice. Okay, this is where it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you see in the greaves here, this is going to catch all of the higher areas, all of those hard edges, and it's really going to make that detail pop. Again, the easiest way when you're starting with dry brushes, and I see a lot of people are talking about dry brushes right now, or dry brushing, is build it up really slow. You know, if you're seeing a massive difference, you're probably doing it too fast. It's probably going on much too quickly. Then with some experience, then you can start to kind of do what I'm doing, which is, you know, adding lots and then kind of moving it around, and different kind of pressures on the brush will also give you different techniques. But I would just build it up slowly. You'll never go wrong. You can always put too much on if you load your brush too much and aren't careful. But if you're taking it in slow strides, you can never really mess up. Okay. And mess up is really a relative term, let's be honest. Great. Yeah, I like how those turned out. And I like how the two-tone, like this is kind of a warmer green, this is a cooler green. I like how it looks like it's almost phasing in and out. I didn't plan that, but I kind of like it. kind of like it. A bit more on the back. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load my brush with my dry brush, and I'm going to take less off and just hit the edges of things. The hardest, highest edges that would have the most, that would be the lightest basically. So wipe less off, and I'm going to hit right here on the edge, and you can see how it's really bringing out the edges of this armor, but only on the edges, only on the highest bits am I doing that. Right on the hard edge of the thing, up here, perfect. Okay. That was good. That was a successful dry brush. In my opinion, that is looking really nice. Got about 15 minutes left. So what I'm going to do now is with a brush, really wash off this dry brush. With a brush, I'm going to use my thin brush again. Whoop. I'm going to go back into Jade Green, dilute it just a touch. Make sure no water coming off it. And I'm going to hit these hard edges with a solid brush stroke like that. I'm using the side of the brush to run it along the edge so that it's picking up the pigment. Just the edge is picking up the thing. So the stroke. So like that, right on here would be the highest. I'm going to do it along here again, the side of my brush. There, along there. It's just picking out the edges like that. And I'm just going to do that in select areas that I want kind of to be pronounced, to really give it the idea. A couple on the edges here. On the front of her, I don't know what this is called, collar. The detail, I didn't want to get too close to the detail on her legs because I didn't want to dry brush her leg skin. So I'm just going to actually brush on the highlight for the top of her greaves here, like that. And then I'm going to get really crazy. Get really crazy, and I'm going to add highlights on the bottom halves of some of these details to really bring them out. Just on those dips where the light from above would be hitting. They'd be hitting the bottom edges. Obviously, if the light's coming from this direction, it would be hitting this bottom edge here. There, here, there, like that. There we go. And that is really making it pop. Okay. I'm also going to do the same on the highest edge of her outfit to the top. You don't want to, you want to be very sparse with this, and you want to be careful that it doesn't go into the recesses, because that'll kill the depth effect that you're going for. And I'm brushing these right along those areas, right on the ridge of where that light would hit the most. Like that. The light would hit there, and then the light would also hit down here, right on this ridge, where it starts, where the flow of the dress starts to flow up again, like that. All right. Okay, we'll take a break on that green. I think I'm going to add, and this is going to get nuts. I'm going to go Glacier Blue. One of the last colors we'll do here. And I'm going to get the dry brush. I'm going to get some of that Jade Green and just a touch of Glacier Blue on there. Get that in camera here. So it's a really light, almost verdigris kind of color. And I'm going to lightly dry brush that color on. Because in the subject material, like I said, some of the highlights on her armor resolve almost to white. So that's what I'm trying to get on all these kind of edges. It's really making it pop. You can see that. Right? Really making it pop. Actually, that's even working better than I thought it would. Good stuff. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work. And you take chances and sometimes it pays off. This time it paid off. Again, I'm just focusing on some of the higher edges with this because I don't want to. You make it look really flat if you apply it everywhere when you're trying to get a highlight done. But with this, her armor will almost be completely done. I'm going to do it along the front here, along the front there, and then along the back where light would hit. There. Oh, the back. I didn't get the back. Last of that color before I end here. There we go. One last turn of her so far. And that is Countess Sensori Session 1, folks. All right. If you want to check out Harshnag and that whole series, you can catch him on our YouTube channel or the D&D YouTube channel. We have 3 parts where we painted him. If you want to check out our Kickstarter, you can do that at www.realmsmith.tv/Kickstarter. And tomorrow night we will be playing D&D. I don't think it'll be a regular stream because Brandon, our DM, is going away with the family. So I will be DMing something fun. Stay tuned to find out what that is. And I'm going to leave you guys with our Kickstarter ad in case you want to check that out. Check out our Kickstarter, realmsmith.tv/Kickstarter. Help us get there. We're 55,000. 60,000 is where we unlock our next stretch goal. We will be continuing the Cloud Giant next session a week today on the Sunday. It is a Canadian holiday, so I'm pretty sure we're running a session unless something tells me I can't. So have a good one, guys. Take care of yourselves and check out our Kickstarter video.
Hi everyone, I'm Joel Auger, and this is
Jason Azevedo.
And we are just 2 of the partners in a company called RealmSmith who deliver amazing, immersive experiences for your Dungeons & Dragons tabletop gameplay every single month.
Every month.
Every month.
Like all 12.
All year long. So you might ask why we would kickstart this whole thing.
In its current state, RealmSmith has been operating for, a year and a half, basically doing what we love to do and offering these boxes and shipping these boxes out. And we've learned a lot of lessons. But we've basically gone as far as we can on our own and with the resources that we've had up to this point. We want to take this to the next level. We want to make it better. We want it to make it the best that it could possibly be.
We really do want more people to find out about what we're doing, and Kickstarter obviously is a central place for a whole bunch of gamers. Yeah. We've seen countless tabletop games come to fruition through Kickstarter, a bunch of D&D-based projects come to life. This is our first ever Kickstarter, and we're super pumped about being part of that community. In addition to that, we really believe that we're breaking Kickstarter with this new packaging campaign.
What we've been doing for the last year and a half is mailing out an adventure box. Basically what that is it's a series of 6 boxes within an adventure that carry along a campaign throughout all of it. They're shipped in this black mailer here that you see, and it includes everything that you see at the table here. Over the last year and a half, we've built some relationships with some awesome partners, and we'll show you some of the products from those partners that we have in each of our boxes. The first is the Fat Dragon Games Papercraft. Basically, we have the Shattered Shield Tavern here that the first module takes place in. We have some WizKids minis, of course. We've got Kale, the bartender here. That is actually a Reaper mini. WizKids minis, we have a dancing girl. We have Violet, the maid who plays a huge part in the first module, no spoilers. We also have scented candles. This is the Blazing Hearth candle. We actually create these here in Toronto with a local artisan. And this smells like a fireplace. We have the Shattered Shield Tavern mug, which is part of the actual first module that you give to your players as part of the story. Every box comes with a module that we've written, which actually has cues of when to light the candle and when to play certain sound sets and moods and sounds from our Sirenscape custom sound sets that we've put together, as well as a hand-drawn map of the Shattered Shield Tavern. Our idea for these modules is pick up and play. The purpose of our boxes is to allow the DM who's busy, who has a life, who has children, who has a family, to literally sit down and play as quickly as possible with as little barrier to entry as possible.
That's so beautiful. So with that, we should introduce our new boxes.
The components were right. They had all of the
when we cast
stuff.
The spell last time.
Yes.
We had the motion different than we did this time. The new boxes. We kind of did the whole like whoosh, and then it happened.
Is that the somatic?
This is the somatic. It's the
wah. Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Here we go.
Here we go. Oh, here we go. It worked. Whew. All right. Well, this is it. We wanted to give as much value as we possibly could into our boxes. And we decided by looking outside of the box to create this brand new mailer that we can mail all of our boxes in each month. And as you open it up, what you'll see is within our prototype, there is actually a DM screen inside the box.
It's in the box.
Crazy, right? And so what you do is you cut it all out, and all these areas will be punchable, and you will punch it all out, and it will turn into exactly what you see in front of you here. It's a full DM screen with a bunch of tables that we like to use at our games. It's D&D 5e compatible. It's got an initiative tracker up top with these little markers that you can write your PC names in. There are markers for NPCs. There are markers for monsters if you want as well. And then there's this really cool, nifty, as it were, dice tower right in the middle of it. So you can roll your dice through it or whatever you want to do. There's also punch-out condition markers as well as initiative coins and things like that. So that is actually the value that we've added into the box every single month. As part of our initial goal, we want to make sure that we provide this DM screen. This is just a prototype. Of course, we want to be able to print it and tool it and offer it to monthly subscribers starting actually in January 2020. That we need a fulfillment partner. Currently, it's being done out of Tim's garage, as we talked about. And his wife isn't too happy about that. So we want to make sure that we're actually shipping on time through a fulfillment partner so that we're not doing it ourselves and we're able to focus on creating better content for all of you out there as well. In addition to our initial goal, which will bring us the DM screen upgrade and upgrading the items that are in the box, we have a bunch of really awesome stretch goals with the design and desire to actually bring the community together. And so check out our stretch goals. And then with the rewards, we have some crazy rewards. And our logistics manager, Tim, is going to kill us, really. But
we weren't supposed to do this.
We weren't, but we are because it's so cool and we're all about immersion. So please check those out. and they're in the same kind of vein as everything that we do at RealmSmith.